Hello and welcome to another edition of Santos on Sports. As usual, alongside my good friend here, Chris Santos. I am Paul Santos. So much to talk about today, especially where we were out last week. So all kinds of great stuff happening in the past couple of weeks. Let's do the sponsors first. Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street, Fall River, Citywide Glass. 3 locations to serve you in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, where my friend Chris, is always presenting himself very proudly, swinging that swinging that tennis racket for most of his life. 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville. You can play tennis. He's not ready for a pickleball just yet, but that could be coming down the road. And John Seed, attorney at law, 156 A Street in New Bedford, and you can visit him at johnseedlaw.com. Chris, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Paul, and I think you're doing pretty good too right now, because I think you realize how big of a week this is with the Belichick McDaniels clash matchup, with 5-8 playing 7-6, and realizing how big of a game this turns out to be between two coaches who know each other really well and who have developed such a great relationship. And it's kind of tough to see them really having to battle for a playoff spot. So a lot on the line this week.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is I always like McDaniels, and we all kind of like McDaniels, so it's true. It's kind of odd seeing him go against Bill Belichick. But before we talk about that, I did want to talk about last week's game. Now, you would think, right, that I would be happy on all these wins. And every time the Patriots win, I'm still not happy. Well, there's a reason for that. I'm looking at that Cardinals game. That was the ugliest, crappiest, most grind out, inefficient game that I've seen in a long time, probably since the week before that. So, and I'm looking at this thing, right? And the players now, you probably referred to it a little bit. There's been a lot of leakage in the media. In fact, our friend Tommy Curran, who was on this show, was talking about it, how the players are starting to say, hey, wait a minute, you guys on the coaching staff, you're not giving us anything to work with here. They're talking about Patricia and Judge, the criticism of Patricia and Judge, 2 failed head coaches, 2 coaches who never ran offenses before, only defense, and we're all scratching our head. Why is Belichick doing this? Okay. True. But, I still have that question. I have that question in my mind, especially what we're seeing in San Francisco. Sometimes a third-string quarterback can rise to the occasion. I'm still looking back at that Lions game, right? The Lions game where the Patriots won by a whopping score of 29-0. Who ran the offense that day? Judge and Patricia. The game against the Packers that they almost won. Who run the offense there? Judge and Patricia. The following week against the Browns, 38-15. Who ran the offense? Judge and Patricia. The difference is that Zappy was in there. Now I'm not going to turn this into a whole nother Zappy thing. I think we've beat that dead horse into the ground. But it is interesting to see how, for some reason, you look at the Browns. The Browns are 6-7. They're almost a 5. The Lions. The Lions are almost a 500 team, right? Now you can say, well, they're playing better now than they did then. Well, the fact of the matter is they went out there and they walloped them. They were moving the ball down the field. They were moving the sticks. So something's not right with, Jones and Patricia and Judge. I don't think that Patricia and Judge like Jones too much. Judge is probably ticked off at how he kind of did get screwed a little bit, and the whole thing has become dysfunctional. But I still ask, why were they able to move the sticks in those games? You still had the same offensive coordinator. So that concerns me. And then when you look over at San Francisco, we're going to hear from Chops, I think, in a little while. Who is this guy, Brock Purdy? Where'd they get this guy? Look at this guy. Like, what was he picked? Like 100? He was picked even lower than Brady. And this guy comes in here and he looks like the second coming of Johnny Unitas. So I don't know. Something is strange in Patriot land over there.
Well, and a lot has come to the forefront this week, Paul, as you said, because Mac was caught on TV not too happy in the last game. And you could see him doing a little screaming before they went to commercial break. And then they came back and he was criticized by like a Troy Aikman and a Joe Buck about not seeing eye to eye. So it has been now out there in the media of what's going on between quarterback and offensive coordinator and why these things are not working out between the two of them. Now, again, things have to go your way, and some things went the way of the Patriots. Some things have to go right. The defense stepped up when they need to. They created some turnovers when they needed to. Kyler Murray going down, obviously, second or third play was obviously huge because I was really wanting to see how the Patriots defense would handle a running quarterback. So I was kind of waiting to see how they would adjust to that. They go back to Colt McCoy. They shut him down. The defense steps up, wins the game for the offense. And then there's all this controversy about between Mac and Patricia about can they relate to one another and get some things going in the right direction to advance, not from the 20 to the 20, but get some more production, as you saw at the end there when he passed to Hunter Henry and they got some running in and they scored, drives like that. So there's a lot going on. Now, injuries come involved. Two guys had to step up their game. Two running backs really had to help out when Stevenson went down. That's a plus. Offensive line trying to build off of that too with that last drive that they do. So going to Vegas, it's a tough game. It's McDaniels being involved. It's the Raiders at 5-8. So not Carr as a mobile quarterback. Like to see how they react to, Devontae Adams, see what they do with him, and Josh Jacobs if he's playing as well. So a good matchup. But I think the Patriots can, if their defense stays with them, I think they can hang in there.
If you're watching on any of our platforms, which you have to be if you're hearing me talk right now, or on your Bedford Guide, Paul Santos Live, Santos on Sports, Fall River Reporter, make a comment. We'll give you a shout out and get your opinion on what's going on. And of course, you can always call us at the phone number. So let me put the phone number up here. I got the wrong thing up there. I got my other show up there. So here we go. There's Santos on Sports, 774-762-6234. Give us a call. I want to know what you think about all this mess that's going on over here with the Patriots, and we're going to circle around to the Celtics and the Bruins. That was interesting West Coast swing. We want to get into that a little bit and talk a little bit about the Celtics, but let's start with the Patriots and continue with that, and then we'll circle back around. I got to tell you, talk about Kyler Murray going down. I have to tell you, I'm with you. I was thinking to myself, oh no, not one of these running quarterbacks again, like we saw even with the Chicago Bears and, of course, with Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, and so forth. I was thinking, oh, God, this is going to be a long night. And even in the play that he got injured, he ran around the side, and he was just like, again, the same old thing. They're chasing him, and they can't catch him, right? I really don't think they would have won that game if Kyler Murray didn't get injured. I really don't. I mean, they can praise, and pat themselves on the back, and we had this game plan and yada, yada. I don't think they would have won it. And then switching back to the offense for a second, again, they had a game plan to do all those screen passes and all that. And that was an idea that they had based on, the game plan that they come up with against the particular defense. But it just drives me crazy. Tell me if I'm wrong, Chris, because you're an X's and O's guy, right?
Yeah.
It's something like 3rd and 17 or something. And I'm watching the game. I'm like, all right, 3rd and 17. Let's see what they can do. And he dumps the screen pass out. And the guy, he runs basically 3, 4, 5 yards. Doesn't matter. He can get 10 yards. He's not going to get the first down on a screen pass.
Right.
And then there was a couple of times where, they even handed the ball off. And not a bad call, but I think it was one. It was like 2nd and 1, and they hand the ball off, and he got creamed behind the line of scrimmage, like loss of 3. I'm like, they can't even get 1 yard on a 2nd and 1. But as far as like a 3rd and 17, and you throw the ball out to the flat like that, I mean, basically sideways. I mean, he threw the ball sideways more than he threw it down the field. I don't understand that. Like, is there a game plan? A situation? Do you think that kind of game plan would work, that you could actually get 17 yards on a dump off in the flat? I mean, sometimes, but very rarely.
No, I agree. But Paul, you have to look at the circumstances of where they are on the field at the time. Let's say that they're on 25-yard line and it's 3rd and 17. You don't want to force a turnover there that gives the defense the ball and they turn around and score right away. You have to see where you are at that particular time. Now, remember, Patriots are one of the most percentage team to run screens and draws than anyone in the NFL. And they've done it for years, and they've had great success with it. So sometimes it's a balance of what they feel, what can work for them, what they see the defense maybe stepping back into, where it's, a 2-cover zone, and you can't really throw the ball downfield too much because they have something, and now you got to get something underneath and hoping you can find another way to get 17 yards. So I can't really squash that idea because I've seen it work for them in the past, and I've seen them build off of it and do better. So, and field position really does a lot to tell you that. I don't want them to get the ball in good field position. So, hey, listen, if it's not what we got, we'll try this play. If we pick up 10, it moves us at least to 35. Now we can punt, force them back, and make them go a long way. So sometimes You have to take it when it works against you, whether it was a holding penalty, whether you got sacked, and it relate to that third down and long, and you do the best you can.
I will admit that sometimes a guy like a Stevenson, you can dump the ball over there and all of a sudden he takes off, breaks a tackle. I mean, he's a tough guy to bring down. He's having a fantastic year. One of the great bright spots on that Patriot offense. So 100%, I definitely would say that is true. The other thing too, I think you're right. And you make a very good point, and I'm listening and thinking the thing through. Yeah. If you're in not even the red zone, maybe just outside the red zone, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, I could throw the ball down the field and take a chance that there's an interception or a sack or something like that. Or you can play it safe, dump it off. If he gets the yardage, fine. But if he doesn't, maybe he picks up the 10. And now we've got a great field goal kicker who can kick a 50-yard field goal. So in the end, you look at the end of the game, you got 5 field goals or something like that. And you're not thinking, well, that was the smart thing to do. But even having said all that, doesn't that tell you that they're afraid to throw the ball down the field? They're almost like too timid. They're like, wait a minute, only bad things can happen, so let's play it safe every single time. Never, ever go for the jugular.
Well, yeah, okay. You can say that they're conservative, and no offense, they should be the way this offense has been moving this entire year. So
Right.
I would be a little bit more conservative too. And do I have the personnel, Paul, in there that can get me that 17 yards? Do I have a Devontae Adams? No, I don't. Do I have a Justin Jefferson? No, I don't. Do I have a Jamar Chase? No, I don't. I got a Devontae Parker. You know what I mean? I got a Kendrick Bourne. How about the play that Mac Jones made at the end there to Hunter Henry? Well, that was over 17 yards. Well, they got one. Again, it wasn't third and long, but there is plays that, yeah, okay, I can stretch the ball down the field. It's just I can't do it maybe on that specific down and yardage I have. So it's there, but they don't have that go-to weapon guy that says, hey, boy, I really need something. Here's my guy and can make great catches like a DK, Metcalf, guys like that really step up and shine in big situations to make those big catches and get some big yardage. So that's not their offense, and that's not how it works for them. That's why they do a lot of flats and a lot of checkdowns and a lot of screen plays and try to get it with that. When Stevenson was out, Harris and Strong stepped in, and those two guys did a nice job to continue to help out on the offense, even though one of their big backs was out for the game.
Yeah, in all fairness to Mac Jones, I mean, the combination of having, the offensive coordinator and his assistant, if assuming that Judge is Patricia's assistant, whatever, on the offensive side of the ball, no experience over there. And then secondly, yeah, I mean, Belichick built this team, and he doesn't have the weapons that Buffalo has, that Miami has now. Look at the improvement in Tua since he got a couple of, weapons there.
Yep.
So there's no question about it that, Mac Jones has definitely been handicapped this year. And you got to wonder, there's a lot of rumblings, not only the players kind of revolting a little bit, but you got to wonder what Kraft is thinking about all this because, hey, look, there's been a lot of success over the years. And so, Belichick is going to get a lot of rope before, things turn. But, I think after last year, it was a terrible year with, Cam Newton. And then you come out of that and you go with this 10-7 year and you're thinking, all right, we're spending a lot of money. I mean, Kraft gave him the checkbook and said, here, right, we're going to spend all this money, over $200 million. And I'm not sure Belichick got the right people, so maybe Kraft is thinking, wait a minute, again, I'm not going to question your success. We have a bunch of rings and a bunch of trophies to prove that, you know what you're doing. On the other hand, I don't know, these last few years have been very, very shaky. And I think Kraft is probably maybe in the background. I'm just wondering, is he starting to get a little impatient that, this team should at least be right around the playoffs, if not in the playoffs?
And let's put the offensive line in there as well. I mean, no offense, but I don't think Trent Brown has had a great year. I don't think Isaiah Wynn has had a great year. You got Cole Strange, in his rookie season, trying to make a statement here. So how much time is Mac really getting? And how much can he, make his reads while he's getting forced? And, I saw it the other day. It was quite interesting how to even pick up a guy who's blitzing and they double team and the guy went right through both guys. And it was kind of strange. And we text on it, me, you, and Ryan, and said, what just happened there? And so there's been some different things that have gone on. So you need a little bit of those playmakers, but you also need some time, Paul. And if you don't get that time, it's going to be a long season and that offense can't keep, get going. So a lot of it's been on Patricia, obviously, and what calls have been played. I haven't heard much about Joe Judge's name as I've heard Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia seems to be the guy in charge, and his name always comes up more than Joe Judge. But still, Bill's got, in the long run, Bill's the one that says, I'm the one who makes the final decision. So he's sticking with what they're calling and how they're getting away with it. Whether they sit down afterwards, whether they're screaming at one another during the game, which was caught live the other night. They're still trying to figure it out. It's been a long process for that offense. And I think the defense has won them a couple of games, as it did last week against Arizona.
Right. And, the thing is, right, you give Bill Belichick, that kind of money, whatever it was, $150, $200 million. History has shown that when you try to build a team that way, it doesn't work in the long run. You get a little temporary bump, and then after that, you kind of lose ground. And it does seem like that's what happened here. But when I look back at some of the free agents that were available during that time, that especially the second year, they blew all the money the first year, then the second year they didn't spend anything. But over the last couple of years, there are some free agents that are a lot of better quality. I mean, Hunter Henry turned out okay, but how many players did they really get with that open checkbook like that? When you look around the league, the Buffaloes, the Miami, some of these other teams, they really picked up some really good free agents. And Bill always thinks that he can take a guy that's a little bit lesser and coach him up and make him as good as that other guy. But sometimes that other guy has talent, and you can't coach up. You can coach up a lot. You can coach up a lot, but talent is still talent.
I agree. And Paul, can you tell me a player that the Patriots have, even when Brady was there from 2000, that you can sit back and say, boy, they really spent, a lot of money getting this guy to come in? Maybe Randy Moss, but I don't see any other big name ever that the Patriots, they tried Ocho Cinco and it didn't work out. But, you think about like Edelman's and Amendoza, those are the guys that they drafted or they got, free agency, but small and worked out for them. But to go out and get a big name, that's not the Patriots style. It never has been, and I don't think it ever will be, to go out and say, oh, I'm going to spend the bank and get a Devontae Adams, or spend the bank and get a big running back and make that big contract signing. Just doesn't seem to fit their mold. And as again you said, Bill tries to mold them the way he wants to into his system, and that's the guy that I want instead of the big bucks guy.
It seems like if you just had one really good marquee wide receiver and maybe tight end, along with what they have now, might have just given them just a little bit more. And of course, had Bill gotten a little bit better of an offensive coordinator, I mean, I just don't understand taking that system that works so well and then trying to turn it into this sort of like the Shanahan system and all that. I don't know. It seems like it's caused more confusion than anything else, especially for Mac Jones.
Yeah, well, wasn't Smith and Hunter Henry the two quality tight ends at that time to go out and get and say, okay, I'm going to build with these two guys and really show them what this is all about. So, that's the way he wanted it, and he went go get those two guys. Now Henry shows up now and then. Smith's name's not really been in the picture, too much. Now, your wide receiver, you could go out and say Devontae Parker was a pickup, but there's just not enough there. And if you're relying on your other guys, it's just not enough. And there's no big name on the wideouts to really get going. Where's the young kid that you talked about, the speed burner? I haven't heard much of him. He made, a couple of plays this year, but just not enough to stretch the field to get it going, to maybe take a chance down there and then use Henry and Smith underneath.
You're talking about Thornton there, right?
Yeah, Thornton.
I kind of remember him catching a couple of touchdown passes there. Do you remember that?
Really?
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. That's when the other quarterback was in. That's right. Excuse me. All right. Hello. You're on Santos on Sports.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey, not too bad. How are you?
Doing good. So first of all, you talked about the Vegas game earlier. Bill versus McDaniels.
Yeah.
Clearly, that didn't generate enough interest for us to not get flexed out of the Sunday night game. Goes to how far things have fallen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree with what you were saying before. With a better scheme and a better coordinator that think. I'm not saying this would turn into like look at San Francisco or anything like that, but. And, you had mentioned how they tried to shift over to the Shanahan scheme, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm perfectly fine with shifting over to that, but get someone who actually knows how to run the offense. If you're not gonna do that, then just elevate a Nick Caley or someone like that, someone who knows the old McDaniels Patriots system in and out. Have them call the plays, or even you should have just gone and gotten Bill O'Brien. That would have been as seamless as it gets. But going back to the Arizona game, really that game just I think I texted you guys about this before. It just tells what a lot of people know already, that Cliff Kingsbury ain't exactly cut out to be an NFL head coach, and who knows what would have happened if Kyler Murray stayed in the game. There's no guarantee that they would have generated more offense enough to win that game, but it sucks to see him go down. Yeah. But we were just kind of feasting off Colt McCoy, and then the DeAndre Hopkins fumble was absolutely huge. So I don't really give any credit to the offense there. And Chris, like you had said, defense won us the game there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Ryan. And we've texted back and forth about this, and we talked about some of the key plays during that game. Obviously, Murray, the one that was really big going down, and you never want to see one of the good guys get hurt. But at the same time, you come back with what you're saying about San Francisco. Well, what did San Francisco do? They went out and got a stud, and that stud is Christian McCaffrey. And if they keep that guy healthy, that guy is the steal for them that could take them to the Super Bowl, because he's that good. It's a matter of keeping him healthy, because they have a great defense. Now, again, a tough injury with Garoppolo and even with Trey Lance, and they're coming in with Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, and he's already done a couple of games at home, 2 games, and then he goes on the road at Seattle, which is not an easy place to play, but he does the right thing. 17 for 26, just controls the game, 2 touchdowns, found the open man, and then he let McCaffrey do what McCaffrey does best, and that's run against Seattle, and they did it well, and that's why San Fran has a good chance. I'm not stuck on the Eagles yet, but I am stuck on the San Francisco 49ers as long as Purdy can handle the pressure of being obviously in big-time playoff games.
I gotta disagree with you when it comes to the Eagles. I've been sold on them for a little bit now. Like okay. just because of the jump that Jalen Hurts has taken ever since they got AJ Brown. Like talk about you talk about Jamar Chase changing life for Joe Burrow last year. It's looking like the same thing as the same kind of connection there. Plus, they were best friends going back to when they were in college. Yep. But the way I look at that, ever since Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen they got over there, they became the best rushing offense in football. So the question was, can that passing attack take another step? And again, they go out and get an AJ Brown, and boom, take a look at this. He might be the front runner for MVP right now. So I'm totally sold on the Eagles.
Yep. Well, I may be a little bit more biased, there, Paul, because I'm a Cowboy fan. But again, I think the Eagles are obviously a good team, and they've showed it with their record. I'm trying to figure out the piece of the puzzle that's going to lead them, obviously, to a playoff push to get them all the way to the Super Bowl. Whether it's A.J. Brown or whether it is Jalen Hurts, and does he have what it takes to be that next level player? And so, we've seen some other guys and some other teams in the past get to where the Eagles have been now and then fall flat on their face in the first round. Not saying the Eagles are going to do that, but I'm a little suspect to see if they can turn it and make that next move. So, we'll see down the stretch how they lead right into the playoffs, because they're going to be a number 1 seed. That's the way that's looking, no doubt, unless they really fault them in the next 4 weeks. But I don't see that happening. So they'll have a bye, they'll be home, and they'll be ready to go.
Hey, Ryan, you're a Cowboys guy, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So, I'm scrolling around the channels there, and all of a sudden I'm like, what? What's this? Houston, what? What? Houston won and whatever they are, and then the Cowboys are going to blow this game. Oh, my. What? Wait. Oh, my God. Chris Santos must be having a heart attack right now. And then, of course, Dallas pulled it out. What the heck happened there?
It's just
It's a one-off.
There's really no other way to put it. My dad and I have been saying this for years. The reason why as good as the team has looked over the past decade or so, the reason why they're never going to go and win a Super Bowl is because they're inconsistent. Yeah, and it starts at quarterback. It goes off he goes into Minnesota, for example, has this great game, but then comes right back and throws like 2 or 3 interceptions, and it damn near cost us the game here. If it wasn't for the fact that Lovie Smith decided to go for it on 4th down, who knows what happens there? It could be an entirely different situation where they're receiving the kickoff and maybe the mentality changes there. Who knows? But that failed conversion on 4th down, what was it, the 2 or 3 yard line?
Yeah.
That was killer. I think that kind of created a spark for that game-winning drive. But the fact that it even came down to that in the first place, that is very concerning. Very concerning. I don't like their chances in the playoffs if they keep doing stuff like that.
17.5-point favorite, Ryan, one of the highest in the NFL this year, and it barely squeaking by Houston. Sometimes you play down to the level of your opponent. It can happen. And sometimes you force issues that you shouldn't do. And I think that's Dak's issue in my eyes. He forces a lot of throws that I don't think he needs to make. He needs to do better. And I continue to say it's been happening ever since he got hurt, Ryan, because he used to take off and he used to run and do a lot better. Now, because I don't think he wants to get hurt with the leg and the foot, instead he wants to stay in there and show that he's got the arm that he can force that ball in there. Now they go out and get T.Y. Hilton. Supposedly, Beckham could be next up, and another guy that they want to sign and move them right along to go with Lamb, go with Gallup, see if that helps out, down the stretch. But you're right. To me, it depends on number 4 to lead them to go anywhere. It has to be through him.
And Ryan, what do you think about the 49ers? Hopefully we're going to hear from Chops. Chops is basically jumping all around and texting me and calling me and the 49ers baby and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And after Garoppolo went down, I thought, oh, gee, what a tough break, But this guy came out of nowhere. Chris just called him. They call him Mr. Irrelevant. We had one of those guys, Mr. Irrelevant. But I don't want to go on that train again.
Not going there.
I already mentioned that. But sometimes that guy that nobody thinks anything about, all of a sudden he comes through. I mean, can San Francisco be a Super Bowl contender with this Mr. Irrelevant guy here?
To be honest, when the Garoppolo injury first happened, I didn't think there was a shot. But to be perfectly honest, he's looking like a more mobile version of Garoppolo right now. You mentioned it. You mentioned it before. He's been deadly accurate for at least for the first stretch of the game. I think last night he was 11 for 11 to start out the game. He's been on the money. He hasn't been forcing anything. He's playing within Shanahan's system. And if he continues to not make mistakes, absolutely they could be in it. And I don't know why, but I don't know if it's because he was Mr. Irrelevant, so he has that chip on his shoulder, or it could be the place where he came from in Iowa State. I don't know. But there's a certain swagger to him too that I think that the entire team gets around. And I think that kind of quality is important when you're trying to get behind a guy who's replacing a guy who at least took you to a Super Bowl a few years ago. So I'm very, very impressed with Brock Purdy, and I can't wait to see how this plays out.
I think he's talking about the it factor. I'm always throwing that out there to Chris, and
You love that it factor.
I love the it factor.
Paul and Ryan, listen, let's remember too, he's got weapons. He's got Deebo Samuel, he's got George Kittle, and he's got McCaffrey now. And remember, you can use McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey caught probably, a lot of balls last night than he has, in a long time. So not only did he get over 100 rushing, but he was catching the ball out of the backfield too. So you got a security blanket there. That's always nice. Kittle's another one. Samuel on the outside. They got a lot going on. Ayuke there. He's doing a great job too. So, he's got weapons to work with. And then he gets sometimes some great field position because that defense is really a good defense.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree there. But to counter that, look at what happened in New York. You got Zach Wilson, an ultra talented kid. They got all sorts of weapons, including Breece Hall before they got hurt. that offense didn't really start taking off until you got a guy like White in there. Now, different situation, but
All right, looks like Ryan broke up just a little bit, but yeah, no, it's a different situation. It's a different situation. I think you were saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a different situation, but you insert a guy who can actually throw a football. You just never know.
The old backup quarterback trick, huh?
You're still thinking of that Zappy guy, huh, Paul?
My fever hasn't broke yet.
Can't let it go.
Just can't let it go.
You still got the Zappy.
I still got it. Hey, Ryan, before you go, right, I'm looking at the schedule here, okay? We're 7-6, the Patriots, okay? Yeah. At Raiders.
Right.
Home to the Bengals, home to the Dolphins, then at the Bills. I mean, those last 3 games, you got the defending AFC champions. You got the Dolphins that are playing good ball for the most part, and, of course, the Buffalo Bills powerhouse. So I suppose you could say the Raiders game is really a must game. So let's say you win the Raiders game. Now you need at least 1 out of the last 3 just to go 9-8. And then you need 2 out of the last 3 to go 10-7. Now, can 9-8 get them in? Maybe. But you definitely need to upset either the Bengals, the Dolphins, or the Bills if you can get by the Raiders. What do you think? What do you think their chances are?
I think there's a good chance that they beat the Raiders just because of how the Vegas Raiders this year are the new version of the Atlanta Falcons. They're always blowing massive leads. That's
for sure.
Yeah, it's just been on Josh McDaniels' resume, sadly enough, just for this job alone. So I think there's a good chance that the Patriots win that game. But it almost feels like going into Thanksgiving. I think after that, it's just going to be a freaking buzzsaw. Because like you had said, the Bengals are the reigning AFC champions right now. They're red hot. Joe Burrow is playing like an MVP right now. And I got to say, too, Cincinnati's defense is very underrated, at least in my opinion. And then there's no shot that we beat Buffalo. I don't think so. And then, even though Miami has been on the downward spiral in terms of play recently, I still think they're a better team. So the only other game I see them winning is this Raiders game. That's about it, sadly enough.
I think Chris was putting up the 2-2. So I'm going to guess win against the Raiders and the Dolphins, losses against the Bengals and Bills. Is that what you're thinking?
That is correct. I don't think Miami will come up here in the north and get that cold weather and kind of get in Tua's kind of that grill where Tua struggles like the Chargers did against them. They kind of maybe slow down Tyreek a little bit, and they pull that one out. So my thing is 2-2. I think that's how they're going to go. I agree with Ryan. Cincinnati's, kind of peaking right now at the right time. Be interesting. They go down to Tampa this week. Then they play at the Patriots. Then they're home to the Bills and the Ravens. So they don't have an easy 4 games, either do the Cincinnati Bengals. So, let's keep an eye on them and see what that looks like. But, I think the Patriots go 2-2 and finish 9-8.
All right. What do you think about that?
I hope you're right, but I just don't see it. I think, sure, Tua will be slowed down a bit probably due to the cold weather coming up here. But I think this is as good of an opportunity as any for the Dolphins, for given the cold conditions, to really focus on running the football, which is what Mike McDaniel was doing over in San Francisco. Use Raheem Mostert, use Jeff Wilson if he's healthy. I think the Dolphins still sweep us. I still really think so.
All right. Well, Ryan, thank you very much.
He's got 1-3, Paul. I got 2-2.
2-2. All right. I hope the 2-2 comes out, because I'm just looking back here. That 9-8, that was my prediction. 9-8 at the beginning of the year. Remember? That doesn't mean anything. I'm wrong almost all the time. But that 9-8, hey, that would be all right. Hey, Ryan, thank you very much for calling.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right. I think we had a call coming in, so try it again. 774-762-6234. I'm trying to put somebody on hold, and I'm afraid I'm going to cut them off. So please give us a call. I got to get the old phone system down pat. But man, I'll tell you, I'm looking at this, right? The seasons have been so unpredictable. This season has been so unpredictable for all the teams out there that it's almost hard to tell. Like, I could see the Patriots losing them all, for God's sakes. But let's go back to the phone while we can. Hello, you're on Santos on Sports.
Good morning, guys, or good afternoon. How you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
It's the OG.
I don't know about that. Hey, I told you guys a few weeks ago I thought 10 wins they needed 10 wins to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I said there's 2 3-game seasons left. You got Buffalo twice in Miami, and you got Cincinnati, Las Vegas, and Arizona. And I said you got to win 2 out of 3 of each of those.
Right.
Well, you beat Arizona, then you got the Raiders and the Bengals, but you lost the Bills.
Right.
Now I'm going to tell you, I think I agree with what Chris just said. Miami hasn't been playing great.
Right.
They're playing at Buffalo this weekend.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be brutal
Yep.
weather, and then they're going to be up in New England in a couple of weeks. Miami's only got 8 wins. They lose to Buffalo and we beat the Raiders. We now have 8 wins, and then we beat them at home. But go back to what I said earlier. Unless 9 wins get you in, my formula, they beat Arizona, they beat the Raiders, and they beat the Dolphins. But if they lose twice to Buffalo and to the Bengals, you went 3-3 instead of 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
Now that says, does 9 wins get you in, or do you need 10?
Right. It could be tricky to try to sneak in at 9. No question about that. The thing is that, you're looking at the Bills. I don't see him beating the Bills. I can see him beating the Dolphins for sure. The Bengals, the Bengals are hot right now. So really, like they said last week, the Cardinals game was like a must win. And really the Raiders game is a must win, because then now you just have to steal 1 or 2 of the rest of them to have a shot. But you can't lose to the Raiders and then expect to go out and like pull an upset off against, say, a Bengals.
See, here's the problem with the 2022 Patriots. They could lose the rest of their games. They could win 3 or 4 of them. You have no idea. But I can tell you, I'm watching that game the other night, and I said, these screen passes don't look like the Brady to Edelman screen passes. Enough with the screen passes already.
They were driving me crazy.
Yeah, that's again.
Is your starting quarterback.
Well, you've had so much success with it in the past, Mark, that they think they can continue to run that and it will work for them. But to go back to that, Dolphins at the 49ers out in the West Coast, they stay out there. They play the Chargers. Now they're going to come back east and play the Bills. That's 3 games on the road. And the third one's always a tough one after losing the first 2, plus in the weather conditions. Then they go back home and play Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Then they fly back to New England, and then they finish back home against the Jets. So, Miami right now, I know they got some weapons. I get it with Waddle and Hill. They picked up some running backs. But that's going to go on the shoulders of, obviously, Tua. And what Tua can bring to the table and how efficient he can be. Didn't look good against San Francisco, and he didn't look good against the Chargers. Let's see how he looks in some real cold weather in Buffalo, and then got to do the same thing 2 weeks later at New England. It will be really surprising to see if he's that good against those 2 teams.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I think it's a tough ask for them. Listen, playing in Miami in the early part of the season's tough for the road teams.
Yep.
Conversely, playing on the road in the Northeast at the end of the season's difficult on Miami. Always has been.
Always has been.
Hey, Mark, what did you think of Mac Jones's frustration these last couple of weeks? It came out 2 weeks ago, and this last week it really came out where he just kind of waved off the offense, and they caught him dropping an F-bomb, like you're not getting the play. And just like everything that's gone wrong just kind of like bubbled over. And now there seems to be a group of players, Bourne might be one of them, that are almost having a mutiny almost, something that you'd think would be unthinkable in a Bill Belichick team. What's going on there?
I love it. Listen, I've always, my knock on Mac, other than the fact that I thought he had a noodle for an arm, is, he's just too laid back. He's just, I want to see the fight. I want to see him, listen, Brady built up to that. But, listen, you've seen Brady swear at a coach before or say bullshit. I want to see that out of Mac Jones. And I'll tell you, I really like the fact that the players are taking his side on it because they're saying, hey, this is our guy. We can win with him. Now, on the thing that surprises me the most, and maybe it doesn't, is the way Belichick and the coaches are handling it. Maybe it was Tom Curran or somebody had an article the other day where they were asking Patricia, is he listening to all? Because listen, unless Matt Patricia lives under a rock, he knows he's seen the memes with the clown costumes and everybody's laughing at him. So, but he's saying, I tuned that stuff out and we got a job to do and we're here to win football games. And of course they won the game, but they're winning it in spite of these guys. And you're hearing all this noise about Belichick's lost a step and, finally all this shit's catching up to him and who knows what's going to happen next year. But I can tell you, with this travesty of an offense, if they manage to win 10 games and go to the playoffs, you're just going to go, gosh, they might not make any changes next year.
Yeah, right. I was almost watching the game. I'm not saying I was hoping they would lose, but I was thinking to myself, well, maybe if they lose all these games, then changes would be made. But you're right. If they end up rallying and end up 10-7, then they're not going to make any changes. And by the way, I do want to ask you a question. I'm not going to mention the backup quarterback's name, but remember when the Patriots won a couple of games there? And I always bring up the Lions game, 29-0, Browns 38-15, the Packers game, they almost came back and won. At the end of those few games before Mac Jones came back, people were actually saying that Patricia is vindicated because his play calling was okay. And then when the other guy comes back, it's like, oh, this guy's a bozo again. So, I mean, I know those are weak teams and everything and so on and so forth, but how are they able to move the sticks when the other guy was in there?
See, that's a great question. Listen, I don't know what's going on in the locker room. I don't know what plays are getting called other than what I see on TV. And it does appear to me, now listen, I've said this before, and I'm not a huge Mac guy, but I do think your best chances of winning are with Mac Jones, not with your guy Zappy. But I will tell you, when you watch the games that Zappy started, the plays looked different. They did.
They did.
He threw the ball downfield. People were moving. So if that's Patricia doesn't know or he doesn't have confidence in Mac, so he's dialing it back, I don't know the answer to that. But it did look like the play calling was a little bit different when Zappy was in there.
No question about it. And some would say, well, he was sabotaging Jones. I don't believe that. I think he just, and we can ask Chris that, I just think that he had more confidence in the other guy. There's no secret that they like the other guy better.
Well, it's interesting because, Mark's saying about the noodle arm of Mac Jones and maybe Zappy's arm, gives you more plays to open up that offense down the field with it maybe a bit of a stronger arm. I mean, I don't know that to be true, and they have specific plays, just for Zappy, and they probably have specific plays just for Mac that they can do a little bit better. So, you're going with the choice that Bill will always say that will lead me to win the game. And their choice right now is Mac Jones. And so they're going with the offense that fits Mac Jones. It's as simple as that.
Hey, before we let Mark go, right, the Celtics went on that West Coast swing.
Yep.
The big boy there, Mr. Tatum, he didn't look too good in the Golden State game and the game before that. But then against LeBron, he brought it. I mean, Chris always makes a point
And Phoenix
to send me the box score, and he made that turnaround shot right in the corner there in the clutch in overtime, right in LeBron's face. So what do you think about that? I mean, I do think he's maturing. I do think he's, possibly morphing into that clutch guy, but I still need to see more because, they almost blew that game. They rallied. They Marcus Smart with a couple of big plays at the end there. If it wasn't for that, we don't even get into the overtime.
Well, I'll tell you, and Chris was laughing at you earlier. You like to call out the it factor. Yeah. And, you've been saying that about Tatum listen, the West Coast road trip in the NBA, Brutal. That's almost more difficult than Brutal. The West Coast trips in football.
Yep.
So the Celtics traditionally have played poorly on those West Coast trips. They always have. Yep. So I wasn't surprised. I shouldn't say that. I was surprised they got blown out by Golden State. I was surprised I thought that would be closer. I wasn't surprised with the Clippers, but knowing they had Clippers-Lakers on a back-to-back, I still felt good that they would rebound and beat the Lakers. But I can tell you this. The fact that Tatum had the ball in his hands, down 2, and he took it to the basket. Now, granted, he didn't finish at the rim, but he was within the lane, taking a turnaround, and that was a shot that he took. If you watched it, I thought about you, Paul, at the time, but it was too late at night to call you. But when he took that shot, I almost looked at him and I said, I think he knew he was going to make that shot. Mm-hmm. Now, I can tell you conversely, man, they were nailing. The press was killing LeBron because he takes a three with 17 seconds left in a tie game. Mm-hmm. You know, that was something Tatum would have done a couple of years ago. Now, I can tell you, Paul, I'm not quite ready to take my Larry Legend picture down from my man cave, but I'm going to be in a couple of years getting ready to hang a Jason Tatum jersey on my wall.
Well, I don't know. Is that what you think?
Listen, they're winning the title this year. You can guarantee
it. There is no team that's as deep as that. The Celtics are deep. They are deep. And it'll be a disappointment if they don't really have a shot to win the whole thing, because I'm watching these other teams. These other teams have the 1 or 2, 3 big guys, and then after that it drops off. The Celtics, they go 7, 8, 9, 10 deep.
I'll tell you, so there's a couple things, and I'm not one to advocate infidelity, but boy, I'll tell you, I think this Udoka thing turned out to be a blessing, because I think this kid that's coaching him now, I think he's a better coach. And because of his age, I don't think he ever would have got an opportunity. I think the players love him. He's only, 10 years older than Tatum. But I can tell you what's going to be important to me is how do they integrate Williams back into the lineup once he's ready to return. Because sometimes when you get to a point, they're playing so well, the rotation's dialed in. Now you got a guy that you know you need because he's a defensive stopper and he gets easy baskets. But you're going to have to play him a good 20 minutes a game. So who's that? Now, I suspect that'll come out of Horford's minutes because he hasn't been playing 30-plus like he did last year anyways, and he's been dealing with some things. But it'll be interesting. And I feel bad for Pritchard because he doesn't have – there's no time left for Pritchard to play. But that's just the way it is. I think the team is – last year, Derek White and Grant Williams were your bench. And if those guys didn't score in the playoffs, we had no chance. We are so deep now. And I think a guy like Grant Williams feels less pressure than he did before. He knew, I need to play 25 minutes in the finals, and I got to score. Now he comes in, he makes a three when he's got one. He doesn't have to. I'll tell you, Smart to me is truly playing point more than he has in the past, distributing the ball. And I just think Brogdon, not only is he skilled, but he fits the culture. Because he coming in going, hey, one game he plays 15 minutes, the next game he plays 28, and he's okay. And he does what the team wants him to do. I think that was a sneaky good. I'll tell you, Brad is proven to be one heck of a GM, because that was a championship move getting Brogdon.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about Hauser and Cornette. Probably those two guys will see some less playing time when Williams comes back as well. But they've been solid just as much off the bench as some of these other guys. And so, go back to what Danny Ainge had done with them. You go back now, obviously, what Brad has done with them and some of them pieces. It's all seeming to come together in how they went and worked it out. And because you've watched for years, Mark, to go out in the West Coast, and even Larry Bird used to say, that is a difficult trip. And if you can get over 500 in those 6, 7, 8 games when you're out there, you are doing really well. And they finished 4-2. Take it, come home, see what you can do after that. But it just goes to show, hey, we're going to play Golden State at home. You're going to see them again. The Clippers, you're going to see them just as much too. So they got Leonard back. They got George back. They'll figure them out. But beating Phoenix, beating some of them other teams, obviously the Lakers, what they needed to do. But when you win on the West Coast, you've got something on that bench and some team chemistry to say we're right where we want to be. And I think that's fine watching what I saw with the Boston Celtics this last road trip.
Well, Mark, before you go, you referred to that young coach, and the story came out that right before the Lakers game was played, after the 2 bad games that Tatum had, the coach sat down with Tatum and said, hey, this is your team. What are you doing? let's get out there. Let's play the game. What do like we kind of like jumped into him a little bit and said, this team is going to go where you go. You're the guy that's going to make everybody better. Let's go. What are you doing? And just kind of like lit a fire under him. And then he goes out and has this great game. I thought that was interesting. I mean, something minor like that, you might say no big deal, but sometimes, just that little thing right there, that little spark can kind of get a guy's attention,
Well, I think you're right. And I think he's been great. And, listen, I'll tell you, I was always critical of Ainge, but if you think about it and how important the draft is in the NBA, because now the top 10 picks every year in the draft, some of these guys, they're 18 years old. It takes 3 or 4 years to figure it out. But when you look at what Ainge drafted, I mean, Smart, Brown, Tatum, these guys were draft picks. And I'll tell you, we had this talk a year and a half ago. Is it Brown? Is it Tatum? They're bickering with one another.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you
I know.
I think Brown is A-OK being number 2. And he says, hey, this is JT's team. But if I can drop 30 and get 10 rebounds, we're going to win those games.
And not to mention, have a chance to win the championship.
I'm telling you, I think so. And, boy, I just think it's a solid team. Now, having said that, you got a couple guys coming back from injury from Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's been right behind them. And Giannis has been doing his thing without the number 2 guy. And now Middleton's back. And so watch out for Milwaukee. And listen, I mean, I think Brooklyn is like number 3 or number 4 right now in the East. So they're playing well, and they still have talent no matter what you think about Kyrie. So getting those guys in a playoff series, I think it would be different than last year. But I think, listen, nobody's as deep as the Celtics. And I think Tatum really has matured in this last year. And I like the assist and rebounds for both Brown and Tatum have both elevated.
All right, Mark, real quick. The Patriots getting in or not?
I'm going to stick to my guns and say if they get the 10 wins, they're in. 9, because here's the thing.
No. I'm asking for, do you think they're going to make the playoffs? No guarantees. No guarantees.
They win 10 games.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because listen, the Chargers are playing hot right now, and the Patriots have a better conference record, so they got the tiebreaker with the Chargers.
Right.
But other than the Raiders, the Patriots could lose their last 3 AFC games. So I don't know, but I'm going to hedge my bet here, and I'm going to say they do not get in. They end up 9-8. Kraft gets pissed off, and he fires Belichick. And Bill O'Brien's the head coach next year.
All right. Wow. We got to think about. We're taking a moment for us to digest this. Hey, Mark, thanks for calling. Don't be a stranger.
All right, guys. Hey, take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Wow, that's a triple header right there.
Wow.
That's quite a triple shot there.
Wow. They go down the stretch and win 1 game or 2 games. They go 9-8. And Bob says, sorry, Bill, you didn't make the playoffs. You're out. Next guy in. Wow. That one's a tough one to swallow. I don't see that happening. That would be interesting if Kraft made that move. That's for sure. But, listen, I like what Mark has to say. I like what he's talking about. And he did say 10 wins would get them there. Now, can they do that? You're going to have to win at home, and you're going to have to beat some good teams. So it's going to be tough for them to do. Let's see how they handle it first, 1 game at a time. Starts with the Raiders. And don't forget, Paul, you get help. It's not always on you. Sometimes you get help. Sometimes another team beats another team. They drop down, and it keeps you at the 7th spot. Or next thing, this team gets beaten, you go to the 6th spot. So it's not only that you have to win your games, but sometimes you get some help. And the Patriots, get fortunate sometimes that they do get help and other teams get beat.
Well, I think we've pretty much summarized the AFC. Let's switch over to the NFC. And I have a guy here on the line who is very, very happy. Mr. 49er. Chops from New Bedford. Hey, Chops, how's it going?
Hey, what's happening, Paul? How you guys doing?
How many games have they won in a row now? Is it 6 or 7, something like that?
Six game, my friend.
Is that quarterback for real?
Oh, yeah, he looked for real. When I first saw him, I knew he had something special. I said, who's that guy number 13? and so he's proven, man. He's proven he can carry the weight,
You know what? I feel a collision course coming up down the road between the 49ers and the Cowboys, possibly in the playoffs. Wouldn't that be something?
Oh, that'd be great. We'll get him, though.
All right, Chris was praising your 49ers a little bit earlier, right? You really sold on them, huh, Chris?
Listen, I think the move they made to go out and get Christian McCaffrey what was the turnaround, because I think Shanahan knows, hey, I got myself a good defense. I got myself Deebo Samuel. I got myself George Kittle. I need someone that can carry the run. Now, he didn't expect, obviously, Garoppolo to get injured, which he did. And, hey, it is what it is. And his kid's stepping in, so we'll see how he does. But at least he can rely, whether it's 2 or 3 games, and, of course, the playoffs, on the heavy running and the heavy catching of passes out of the backfield from McCaffrey, which we saw for years in Carolina. And that's all they had on offense out there. Now he's got more weapons, and it just frees up McCaffrey even more, because you got to worry about Kittle and, obviously, Deebo Samuel.
He said it all, but I ain't got nothing to say, Paul.
You agree with everything he said?
I agree with everything he said. He's absolutely right.
I think he's getting nervous because of, the 49ers play his team.
You listen, I talked about this, Paul, and I said at the Chops last time, it would be wonderful to see that Cowboy 49ers matchup again.
Yeah, that would be. That would be great for the NFL.
I think so, too.
Yep.
Chops, I was going to say, what do you think the key to the success has been? Because they were just a 500 team about 5 games ago.
Well, I think, like you said, McCaffrey, man, played a lot to it, and that defensive coach, man, he know. And I knew that with the defense, they had to tighten it up. They got a little more tight to do, on the outside. But other than that, I think they're ready. They're good. They're ready to go.
So you think they're Super Bowl contenders?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Hey, we have a bet, on our other show. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl, I got to do the whole show wearing the 49ers outfit.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, man. There's some good teams out there, Paul.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, anything can happen, and you got to get some breaks, penalties, this and that. But
all that, right.
But the San Francisco is definitely right there. That's for sure.
They're definitely right there. I mean, they played good. They looked good yesterday at the Seattle's game. I'm watching it. Matter of fact, I'm watching it now.
Hey, you know what? Earlier in the year, when they're losing, right? They lose some games, like Chops is yelling at the TV and everything else. In fact, if they're losing bad, I don't call them then. I let them cool off. I call them next day. But now they're winning, and oh boy, I have to hear about this every day and everything else, So,
hey, Anthony said he's going to get you.
Anthony is another 49ers fan. All right, Chops, thank you very much. We'll talk to you in a bit.
You too. Have a good time, you guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, every time I see the 49ers win, I think, oh, boy, I'm going to hear about this for the next week. But, hey, he's been a 49ers fan all the way since Montana, so he's not a bandwagon jumper or anything like that.
I hear you. I know how it is way back when I had Roger Staubach. So, I'm living with it. I'm going with it. And like I said, we go as that goes. That's all I care about.
I know, and
he does well, we do well.
Yeah, and I'm not sure he's got that it factor. I'm not sure about that one. But anyway, Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street, Fall River. Thank you for being one of our sponsors. Citywide Glass with 3 locations to serve you at 425 State Road in Dartmouth, another location in Fall River and Taunton. We have the Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis like Chris Santos, or maybe not quite like Chris Santos, but you can try to be Chris Santos. And you can also play pickleball. And John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. You can go to johnseedlaw.com. Well, it was a fun show. I think we covered quite a bit of ground there.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the Bruins yet, but that's fine. We'll get to them, probably next show and, get some more things going on. But right now it's getting real crunch time in that AFC. And boy, none bigger than these next couple of weeks with some good teams playing against each other and a lot of division rivals down the stretch.
The thing that's made it so fun is that there's more parity. So in other words, a lot of the bad teams aren't as bad as you think they are. And some of these good teams aren't as good as you think they are. So like almost, especially when you get from say that middle 80%, anybody can kind of beat anybody. And, and then it becomes like, not only is every game important, it almost comes to the point where every down is important in some of these games. You come down to a key play, a key down in the game, and it's like that can be the whole game or you blow the whole game in that down. So that's what makes it so enjoyable and so much fun to watch. All right, well, Chris, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Pleasure as always, Paul, and everybody out there. obviously, we'll try to get to you next week, and happy holidays along the way too.
That's right. Happy holidays to you and yours. And for Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. Thank you very much for watching Santos on Sports, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.